What would it look like if emotional intelligence was the anchor of how men led their marriages? This is the topic today. Welcome back to The Outpost. Welcome back to The Outpost. This is our third episode with Russ West on emotional intelligence. If you weren't here before, the first two episodes was basically, first episode, Emotional Intelligence 101. The second one was Emotional Intelligence and Men. The third one, as I said before, is marriage. And Russ and his wife have worked with hundreds of couples. And we've asked him to come back and talk about men, emotional intelligence, and marriage. So Russ, when you look at that, what is the common, most reoccurring theme you see with men and emotional intelligence in their marriages?
So this is just our opinion, Danielle and our opinion, so that doesn't mean it's a fact. But after working with over 400 couples, we believe that the hardest thing in marriage is managing that inevitable tension that comes up in marriage. And it's a regular tension, right? And it's from bumping or triggering each other's subconscious wounds, subconscious fears, and subconscious expectations we have for each other. And did you hear the word subconscious in any of that?
Subconscious.
Yeah,
Subconscious.
So this is where emotional intelligence is going to come into play. The Gottmans, Dr. John and Julie Gottman, very famous marriage therapists. They've been doing it for over 45 years. Done tons of research. They claim in their research, and most counselors use their research, they claim in their research that almost 70% of problems in marriage can never be fixed. So they become tensions to manage, not problems to fix. And the healthy marriages are the ones that learn how to manage the tension in a healthy way. That is so hard for people, especially men.
Why? What is it that makes us, when do we power up and shut down? Is it when we can't fix things?
Yeah. So the why it's so hard is when I said that, when we tell couples this, they're like, and the men especially, because we're fixers, right? And that's our superpower at work. We get rewarded handsomely if we're great fixers at work, right? But in marriage, we get so frustrated. Men get so frustrated when they can't fix everything in their marriage. And when you're talking about almost 70% can't be fixed. So it creates a ton of frustration. And of course, it makes men feel like we're failures as husbands, that we're not capable. So it's that is the number one thing that we believe, is the biggest challenge.
I wonder if somebody had come to me before I got married and could convince me that that was true, how it would have changed our marriage. Yeah, because I know I didn't believe that.
Right. And so it's funny when people come in and we tell them this, they don't believe it, right? They don't. So we have to take them through a process.
They don't believe that 70%, or they don't believe that it's not their role to try to change their spouse.
No, they believe that they can fix their marriage. And they don't want to hear that they can't fix it.
Amen.
Right. And so it's something that we have to take them through a process, to try to fix their, to try to let them learn that this is really the case. And that it's so hard on them. But we believe that, Danielle and I believe, a lot of people believe, that Christians, that God made marriage this way because it forces us to be more like Christ, right? This tension that we have to learn how to manage forces us to be more loving, accepting, forgiving, serving, encouraging, submitting, mercy, grace, compassion. It forces it, right? Because we're not supposed to be able to leave this relationship. And so that's why learning that, and it's so hard for people to wrap their heads around it, because I should just tell me what the problem is and I'll fix it.
Fix it.
And it can't be. And so you take any topic, whether it's parenting, sex, money, any of those topics, because we're two different people with two different subconsciouses, right? With wounds and expectations and fears, we're never going to get on the 100% on the same page. And actually that's good. I'll give you a great example. We see this all the time in parenting. Parenting when couples that are struggling come to us, usually the number one thing is if they have children, it's parenting. Okay. Is the number. People think sex and money, and those are big ones. Don't get me wrong. But parenting are the biggest fights.
That's true for us.
Right. And so when you look at Danielle and I, so Danielle grew up in a very strict home. I grew up, my mom had to go work all the time. So my brother and I were kind of home by ourselves. So we didn't have that strictness that she had where mom was home all day long. Well, Danielle wanted to discipline from here. I wanted to discipline here subconsciously, which created tension all the time. Now, the good news is this over here was not great for our kids. This was not great for our kids. That tension was bad. It was no fun for me and Danielle, but it was better for our kids because we ended up in here most of the time, right? And so we see this all the time with this tension, and trying to get people to embrace it is really hard.
So there's two sides to the coin. We talked about this at breakfast one time. We talked about it earlier on a call. There's this tension of I can't fix my marriage, but I feel like I should. There's the conflict that arises, these patterns of conflict that are in all marriages. So that's going on somewhat with him. It impacts her, but it's going on with him. With her, there's this tension of like the wife feels, I don't feel safe. Mm-hmm. And often when our wives don't feel safe, we can misinterpret that. And that kind of adds more fuel to the fire, because when a wife doesn't feel safe, I mean, there's probably other things in there. And it's almost like another thing to fix. Can you reconcile kind of how those two play together?
Yeah. So most men, they are constantly don't feel like they're good enough when there's challenge. For the women, they don't feel like it's an emotionally safe place. And the problem is when a wife says, I don't feel safe with you, the men thinks they're talking about physical safety. Mm-hmm. And they get real defensive. What do you mean? And so emotional safety, what they're asking their spouse, their husbands is, look, I feel like I can't come to you with a complaint or frustration without you overreacting or without you shutting down. And, for the husbands, we struggle with women bringing complaints and frustrations to us because all we hear is we're a bad husband. All we hear is we're not good enough. So then we become emotionally unsafe because we're reacting like they're calling us a bad husband. They're not doing that. They probably have a legitimate frustration and they need to be able to express frustration. But because of the way we react to that frustration, they don't feel emotionally safe.
It's a cycle.
Yeah. And we call it the ugly dance.
It is an ugly dance. One of the things that I can remember, emotional safety for Monica was number one, if you're gonna power up, if we're gonna really talk about things, there was no level of argument of raising the voice that made her comfortable.
Right.
Like escalation meant
even just the tiniest bit. Yep. Shut her down.
That and the other thing was, in the busyness of being important, in the busyness of doing your work, don't you see how hard I work, and all those things we tell ourselves, they're developed in me a brusqueness, a curtness. I can't be bothered with that. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that she needed to feel emotionally safe was, can you just talk sweet to me? Mm-hmm. Like I'm not really asking for much. Right. Like as busy as you are, can you just be not curt? Yeah. Can you not be not brusque? Can you be sweet? Can you talk sweet?
This is Morgan Snyder his wife saying to him, I need you to be my friend.
Yes.
Like, stop being my husband for a minute. I just need you to be my friend. And that changed my life.
And listen, there's lots of levels of safety in a marriage, and we could all go around the room and probably can enumerate what safety means to our spouses, what safety doesn't mean. But it was remarkable to me that you could have so much tension between two people who love each other around what I would call, on the scale of issues in a marriage, pretty simple.
It really is. And the Gottmans also claim, their research shows that 4 of the most destructive behaviors or emotionally unsafe behaviors are criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. And so, when you think about that, those are, if we get defensive, if we're defensive, we're not emotionally safe, right? If every time they do something, we make them feel criticized, it's not emotionally safe. Contempt is probably the biggest, most destructive of all of them, right? When we talk to them in a way that we're talking down to them or that we're superior, we're not meaning to, but if it comes across that way, Oh man, that's probably number one. But so for Danielle, as a tiger, she needs me not to get defensive and talk with contempt and criticism. For her, she's a turtle. I need her not to shut down. See, earlier in our marriage, what we need from each other is different for emotional safety. And we always coach couples, get really good at coaching your spouse what you need from them to feel emotionally safe. And it's different for both sides.
Right.
You know? And so, but that contempt, all of them are big. And all of us, I think even turtles, all of it can be defensive. Defensive is a common trait, but contempt is like the most.
I heard something from a marriage counselor. He said that number one indicator in all of his practice of a couple that was not going to survive was when one of them rolled their eyes. When the other
that's
spoke.
Contempt. Rolling your eyes is contempt.
Like that, it was almost unrecoverable.
Yeah.
It's that level of contempt.
And the challenge is that people don't realize they're doing it.
It's a nonverbal.
Yeah. And people don't realize they're doing it.
Oh my God.
But it's like, you might as well say, hey, idiot, when you roll your eyes.
Oh my gosh.
Yikes.
Thank you, God.
So we talked about, we kind of teased out the tensions for men, failure and conflict, can't fix it. The tension for women is, and this is super oversimplification, but the tension for women are not being emotionally safe and not being heard. So all this tension is swirling around. And you've come up with a great way to kind of make this simple, a great way for people to understand what's really going on the front side, but also the reactions to what this reactions that come out of this behavior. And you call it turtles and tigers. Can we go deeper into that? We talked about it before, but I think this is seminal in marriage.
Yeah, we call it tigers and turtles. As a matter of fact, Danielle and I are trying to write a book right now called Tigers and Turtles. We're doing, unless the publisher makes us change the name, but that's what we want to call it. And so what we found in marriage, all of us, forget marriage for a second, all of us are either tigers or turtles by the way we handle things when we get triggered, when we get flooded with cortisol and adrenaline, when things happen inside of us. And so what we've looked at with couples, there's always 80% of the time with 400 plus couples where there's a tiger and a turtle. Sometimes there's two tigers, sometimes there's two turtles. The two tigers fight like crazy, but they also are very passionate and they have a lot of fun together. Two turtles don't address anything. They don't fight, so it's nice and calm, but they don't really address any frustrations, and they kind of get, so they never allow a lot of emotional intimacy there. These two tigers drive intimacy away. These two don't ever really build intimacy because they don't really talk about anything hard or tough. The tiger and the turtle, 80% of the time, there's one of each, which is wild. And in our marriage, it's that case. I'm the tiger, Danielle's the turtle. So what that means is when our brain and nervous system cause us, when our spouse says something we don't like or agree with, everybody can relate to that feeling inside of them when their spouse does something they don't like or says something they don't like or agree with. So what's happening is in our brain, the amygdala, the prefrontal cortex, or the logical part of our brain, right underneath it's the amygdala. The amygdala is there's two pieces, two parts called the amygdala, and that's our fear threat system or our emotional brain. Mm-hmm. And what it's designed to do is when it gets triggered, it's our fear threat system. When it gets triggered, it's to hijack our logical part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, to fight, flight, or freeze. Well, that's great if we're going through the woods and a bear crosses our path. There's no negotiation. The amygdala hijacks the prefrontal cortex. Boom, floods us. Run, fight, freeze. That's great when we're walking through the woods. But in marriage, whenever our spouse says something we don't like or agree with, or does something we don't like or agree with, the amygdala gets triggered, hijacks the prefrontal cortex, floods us with cortisol, adrenaline to fight, flight, or freeze. Mm-hmm. Us tigers, we're the fighters. So I'm that guy. That means we get defensive, verbally aggressive, lash out, tone gets higher,
and it jumps over the court. So your logical brain checks out.
Yeah, correct. Completely locked out.
So your ability to kind of go, wait a minute, I'm going too far. It's gone.
It's gone. It's been shut down. It's been turned off. Wow. It's been turned off. That's why we have what we call a 10 reaction to a 2 circumstance, right? Or we always say, the amygdala or the emotional brain ends up doing or saying something that the prefrontal cortex or logical brain has to come back and apologize for, right? Why does that happen? Well, here's the most important part. I always share this with folks that in my 28 years of going to counseling, this is the most important thing I've ever learned, is that the prefrontal cortex stores all of our memories as pictures. So anything we can remember from our past, that's the prefrontal cortex. The amygdala stores all of our memories as emotions with no pictures. And where that's so important is, so for example, my dad, when I was growing up, he was an alcoholic and drug addict, and he would embarrass me all the time, horrifically. Well, all the times I can remember that, that's my prefrontal cortex. But what happens in our marriage is early on, especially, sometimes now a little bit, but I'm much better at it, is when Danielle would do anything to embarrass me, a little bitty thing, like correct me when I'm telling a story, I would feel like, I mean, like the world was coming to an end. And what was happening is in a millisecond, my amygdala or my emotional brain was remembering the way that my dad used to embarrass me and making me feel that way. But since there was no picture with it, who was I blaming for that horrible feeling? Danielle. And then I would react to her like she was embarrassed me the way my dad used to. But there's no correlating here in the moment because this is milliseconds. We found this is the biggest challenge. What almost every couple that comes with us with a challenge, if it's the way the dishwasher is loaded all the way to, didn't pick up the kids on time to whatever, is triggering something inside of us when we have that overreaction or 10 reaction to a 2 circumstance or an 8 reaction to a 5 circumstance, whatever it is when we overreact. So as tigers, it's that verbal aggression, it's that tone. The turtles, the opposite happens. Biologically, when they get triggered and their amygdala hijacks the prefrontal cortex, they just freeze or withdraw. And biologically, they can't even think. And it can really drive a tiger crazy. So when Danielle and I used to have tension early in our marriage, and I'd be like, well, why did you do this? And she would just be, and she wouldn't answer my question. And of course, that just made me feel disrespected. And I'd be really come after hard. And the harder I came, the more she shut down. Yeah. And it was I thought she was being disrespectful when really it was biology. And so this tiger turtle dynamic is so big, and this amygdala where the more intense our frustration, the more it's about me, which means something's been triggered inside of me. A memory from my past that felt horrible has been triggered, where I felt unheard, unloved, embarrassed, abandoned. You pick the feeling, something's happening back there. But right now, all I'm feeling is anger or frustration or hurt. But really, it's one of these deeper feelings that the amygdala is remembering, that it's reminding it of and associating.
So you said you talk about this concept with all of your couples. Do you ask them to self-identify? Like, what's the next step?
So they don't believe this is the problem when we tell them. Right?
Oh, no. Come on.
No, it's not. If they will just change, everything will be okay, right?
Okay.
If they'll just do this, do that, not do this, not do that, then everything would be great. And so we don't tell them this up front. We prove it to them. So our first session is called the frustration session. And we'll say,
just start right in on it.
Yeah. And it's called, well, they're not coming to us with we're like, we're those, we try to get as much impact as possible. We're not trying to drag them out for months, right?
Right.
And the other thing that we do, back to the amygdala and the nervous system, is when they walk in, we put pulse oximeters on them. Remember the pulse oximeter?
Yes.
Right? And so for the heart rate, not for the oxygen, right? But it measures your heart rate. Right? Because when we get flooded, our heart rate goes up. And so we'll put them on it. And some of those people, we put alarms on them at 100. Because at 100, that means you're extremely flooded, and it means you're extremely in the emotional part of your brain. Wow. We'll have people sit down on their couch. Before they say the word, they'll be at 107. Just coming to us, they're at 107.
Tend to be more men or more women?
But
any correlation?
No, there's no correlation.
I think men would struggle.
And there's no correlation with men and women. And there's no correlation with tigers or turtles. See, the tigers believe that the turtles don't have, because they're calm, they don't say anything ugly. But we'll have turtles come in, they'll be at 108.
Yeah, they're boiling.
Wow.
And the spouse will be, what? I mean, they're like
boiling.
They're boiling, but they look calm as a cucumber, right? Because they're turtles.
Yeah.
And so we take them through this frustration. And what we do, this is great. So we say, and we always have the turtles go first, because if the tigers go first, then the turtles might not want to go, right? So we have the turtles go first. And so we'll say, turtle or whoever it is, wife or husband, will say, what's something that really frustrates you about your spouse? And they'll say what it is. Well, I don't feel like I'm a priority. Okay, how does that make you feel? It makes me mad. Okay, well, what else do you feel? I feel frustrated. Okay. we'll say, okay, frustration, anger, hurt, sadness, those are high level primary emotions. And we have these big feelings wheels.
Oh, they're great.
Right. And we take the feeling, by the way, go to feelingswheel.com.
They're great.
You can just look them up on it. But we take the feelings wheel and we hand it to them. They've got their little pulse oximeter on, right? We hand them this feelings wheel and they're looking at it. And we're like, okay, what else do you feel? And they're looking at it. And of course, the way the feelings are in the middle is fear, anger, sadness, and so those are the high level primary emotions. And then as you go out in the bands, it has the deeper emotions, right? And so we're trying to get them to go out. And as they go out, well, first thing we'll say, what else do you feel? They'll say, well, I feel like he or she, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, that's not a feeling. If you say, I feel like he or she, that's not a feeling, right? What do you feel? And then we have to give them that feelings wheel. And they'll be, okay, I feel embarrassed, abandoned, unappreciated, blah, 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 blah. And so we take them through that and then we keep pushing them and they'll fight it. Their nervous system's like, don't go there. And they'll go back and say, well, I feel like he this, or I feel like that. I said, no, remember, that's not a feeling. And they'll go, And so we'll keep digging them down. And then we'll finally get them down to where we're headed. We know at the bottom is this wound of inadequacy every time. But if we tell them the issue in their marriage is their wound of inadequacy, they'll be like, no, it's not. It's my spouse. That's my problem, not my wound of inadequacy. So we're getting them there. And some get there quickly. Some take 45 minutes. And they'll say, well, when this really happens, and we have to ask questions certain ways to help get them there. And they'll finally say, I feel insignificant. I feel insecure, inferior, inadequate, not worthy. And man, as you see this, their whole body language changes, right? They start going here and then we'll say, has there ever been a time in your childhood where you felt those emotions, inferior, insignificant, inadequate, unworthy, unloved? And man, here come the tears. 70% of the time, here come the tears. Well, this happened in my childhood. And we start, and now the light bulb is starting to go off. Yeah. And then we say, do you think that, and we tell them there's two objectives we want in this process. We want the person speaking, like giving their frustrations, to understand their role in the frustration. So I realize now, really, I'm not just angry or frustrated. I'm feeling inadequate, insecure. And you know what? That reminds me of when I felt that way back here. So now I'm owning my role. Now, here's the other thing. The person who's listening, we want them to learn to have compassion for their spouse's frustration. So when Danielle shares a frustration with me, I don't have any compassion, right? I'm getting defensive. I'm trying to convince her. Yeah. And so now, so Danielle's big wound is feeling ignored. So in our marriage, if we went out to dinner party, the next, she'd get in the car and I would be happy. I'm Mr. Social Butterfly. I'm all excited. We had a great dinner party. I get in the car and look over and she's pouting. What's wrong, honey? You ignored me all night. Well, no, I didn't. Yeah, you did. No, I didn't. The whole ride home, it's no, you didn't. Yeah, I did. Fighting over who's right, right? Early in our marriage. Now, because I know how painful it is when she feels ignored, and it's so painful for her childhood. So now I can get irritated or frustrated when she tells me she thinks I'm ignoring her. But now if I can just replace a little bit of that frustration with compassion, wait a minute. Yeah. And the silly example we used, one time I said, well, tell me why you felt ignored. She goes, because you talked football for 2 hours. And I'm like, and of course my immediate comeback wanted to be, honey, we were there 92 minutes. How could I have talked football for 2 hours? I wanted to prove that she was wrong. But instead now I can say, okay, wait a minute. If she felt I was talking football for 2 hours, then I can understand why she felt ignored. And I know from her childhood how painful that is. So we want the spouse listening to start learning to have compassion when they complain about a frustration. And we want the person who's giving their frustration to own their role in it. Yeah. And so that's how we prove it to them is we don't tell them this up front. We take them through the process and man, the light bulb when it goes off. We had a couple who had been separated for a year. And they got referred to us and they came in. I mean, that husband was so mad. I thought just his eyes when he walked in the door, I thought he was going to punch me.
Oh my gosh.
And he sat down and I said, okay, tell us where you're at. And he goes, I'll tell you where I'm at. I'm mad as Hell and I don't want to be here. I think I might leave right now. That's how frustrated I am. And I said, sir, I understand where you're coming from. actually this session's called the frustration session. So you're about to get a chance to talk about how frustrated you are, right? But fast forward, we went through that process. He came out, he told something that he had never told anybody, including his wife.
Wow.
And he realized, because he was having a 10 reaction to a 0.2 thing. I mean, what he was so angry about was so ridiculous. But so we know, Danielle and I know when that's the case, there's something in the past.
Imagine that poor wife's life dealing with a guy who's that.
And we kept digging with it and digging on it because I just kept telling him, this doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Finally, I said, are you sure there's something in your past you haven't shared with us? And he didn't talk for 60 seconds. And Danielle and Lauren, we just let him sit. It was awkward.
Amen.
And he finally said, there's something I haven't shared with anybody, even her. And he pointed to his wife. And it was something horrific in his childhood.
What a breakthrough.
It was something horrific in his childhood. And then I said, I said, we can stop right now. I didn't mean to push you this far because it was a horrific thing. And I said, he goes, no. Let's keep going. I said, well, you know where I'm headed next probably. And that is, what do you feel when you think back about that? And he, once again, here we go for another 60 seconds. And then he said, you know what? I'm really angry. I don't want to get into details. He said, I'm really angry about this. And I said, well, do you think maybe you're projecting some of that anger on her? And man, the light bulb went off in him. Came back 2 weeks later for the next session. It was like 2 different people walked in. After that second session, the wife texted Danielle and said, we're going to move back in together. We all help facilitate it.
Oh,
wow.
And now they've been back together for about over a year and they seem to be doing incredibly well. But it was all, they just never understand that it's this thing back here that's really impacting our marriage here. So back to emotional intelligence. Now that he understands this, and what I'm so proud of him is this particular guy and the wife has validated it. And she had horrific stuff in her childhood that she had never realized was, so it was the ugly dance. They were just triggering each other's trauma all the time in the ugly dance. And she realized we took her through it. She quickly, because she saw what he went through, she quickly was able to do hers. And now I'm just so impressed with how they've actually practiced the tools. They were, because the light bulb went off. And we always tell people when they come in, we just want to give them hope. They come in with no hope. If you give them hope, then they'll do the work. They do the work, they get some success. Then they have more hope, do more work, more success. So this is where emotional intelligence, why we say emotional intelligence is just so important in marriage.
Well, if you're a man, I think about the inclination. I'm not going to say that all men are tigers, but
no, we've got a billion men that are turtles.
Right. So there's 2 questions. One is, if you're a man, what are the things that you need to go into every conversation, every moment with your wife when you realize that she's a turtle? There seems to be, when you know that your wife responds to sweet talk, you talk sweet. When you know your wife responds to not escalated tone, you try not to scream and yell. When you know that your wife wants to be heard, really heard and seen, you try to be a little bit more present and thoughtful about when the conversation goes down, as opposed to 5 minutes before bed or as you're walking out to take the kids to school. So how do you tell guys to care for their turtles, their tigers? How do you tell a tiger guy to care for his turtle wife? And also, I'd ask the other question. How do you tell a turtle guy to lead his tiger wife? Which might be more daunting than the first.
Sure.
Because you have to jump outside of your natural wiring. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, both of them you have to get outside your natural wiring.
Yeah.
Okay, so the tiger, because I start with the first, that one's easy because I'm a tiger and Danielle's a turtle. So what things we always try to teach both sides is, first of all, understand what your spouse needs from you to be emotionally safe. Okay, so as a tiger and a turtle, the turtle is usually going to say, I need you to be calm, not be defensive, not get loud, and not be defensive, not talk with contempt, right? Don't talk down to me. So but most importantly, you coach you tell the tiger, go ask your spouse what they need from you to be emotionally safe. What's it like to be on the other side of me? What is it about me that makes me not emotionally safe to you? Okay. Then the second thing is ask them how they feel most loved. Okay. So for Danielle, and this will make sense when you think about her wound, Danielle has 2 big wounds. The way her anatomy shows up in this feeling ignored or feeling not smart. Okay. Her number one way she feels loved is attention. Okay. But it's very specific kind of attention. So we would say, Tiger, go ask your turtle wife, what specifically does she need to feel loved? And so Danielle and I asked her, I need attention. Okay. What kind of attention? If she walked in there and said, hey guys, here's Danielle, that's not the kind of attention she wants. So I said, honey, what type of attention makes you feel most loved? She thought about it. She said, when you enter my world. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? So then I said, okay, what makes you feel, how can I enter your world to make you feel most loved? She thought about it for a while and she goes, here's some of the things. One is for you to ask me a lot of curious questions. So if she comes in from CrossFit and I say, hey honey, how was your workout? And she says, it was good. And I just go back to what I'm doing. I might as well have stumped on her toe. She needs me to say, well, hey, what workout did y'all do today? Who was there? Anybody I know? How'd you do in the workout versus last time you did that work? She needs me to ask her 4 or 5 curious questions. That's how she feels loved. The other thing is she goes, Russ, when I'm talking to you, the kind of attention I need is I need you to make sure you're not looking at your phone, looking at your laptop. Right. So I've learned now if I'm on my laptop, I take my reading glasses off immediately because then she knows I'm focused because I can't see what's in front of me. Right. Or I'll just close it like this. Right. But if I'm talking, she would say, if I'm talking to you and your phone buzzes, please don't look at it because it hurts. So it's back to coaching our spouse. Asking our spouse to coach us what they need to feel emotionally safe and what they need to feel most loved. That's what I would tell both sides. That's really awesome. Both sides. Most of these things are universal, whether you're tiger or turtle, on the skills. Now, as I said, when tension happens, conflict happens, the tigers have to learn the skill of pausing. It's easy for a turtle to pause. And tigers will say, well, I just can't do that. I'm saying, sure you can. Then what do you mean? I'm saying, if you're sitting there verbally berating your wife and your boss calls and you answer the phone, hey boss, how you doing? Oh yeah, I'll take care of that. Thank you. Blah, 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 blah. We prove we can pause if we want to pause. But it takes practice, right?
Ouch.
And so for the turtle, they want to avoid conflict at all costs. So when tension happens, and we pause, we want everybody to pause immediately, then we got to have the turtles got to come back. So we always say, commit up front before you get into tension that you will pause. Sometimes it's this, sometimes it's I'm flooded, I need some time, whatever it takes to pause, then commit that within 24 hours, you'll come back.
Yeah.
And then here's the key, in the middle of pausing and coming back, both of you have to go have that frustration conversation with yourself. What am I feeling?
What is this?
I'm mad. What else am I feeling? What else am I feeling? Why am I feeling this so intensely? And it can't be about the other person. Because for me to feel this intensely, it's more about me.
So good.
So then when I come back in 24 hours to address the tension, I'm coming back owning my role in tension calmly. Those skills are for everybody. But once again, it's easy for the tiger. Tiger has to learn to pause. Turtle has to be willing to come back. Both have to be willing to have the conversation with themselves.
But if you're a turtle, any changes if your inclination as a man to avoid, to be passive, to run from confrontation, and here you are trying to lead your wife. Here you are trying to pass to your wife. So would you say he uses the same approach with her?
So here's what we do. Here's what we try to also teach all couples, but I think this is really important for what you're saying, Scott, for turtles who are turtle husbands that are trying to lead their marriage. We encourage everybody to have a weekly check-in. Okay. And we encourage them in that weekly check-in to talk about your schedule for the week, right? To talk about your hopes and dreams. And people talk about my dreams every week. I wanted that beach condo for 15 years and that ain't going to change it. No, we're saying everything from I want that beach condo to I want to lose 2 pounds this week, or I want to try this restaurant. There's magic when our spouse listens to what's important to us. It builds emotional connection, right? And we also, by the way, we start out, there's a fifth step at the beginning is to pray out loud together.
Yeah.
Because there's magic in praying out loud together.
I've heard that.
There's our counselor claims it's one of the most intimate things a man and a woman can do.
Yeah.
So much so that he won't pray individually with a woman by himself. And so pray out loud together, do your schedule, talk about hopes and dreams. Now here's the key. Here's the key for what you're asking about, Scott, with the turtles. Turtles do not want to talk about conflict, right? So the third thing is it's called the frustration part of the weekly check-in. And you ask your spouse, have I done anything to hurt or frustrate you this week? Turtles do not want to do that. Okay. And
they don't want to be asked that?
No, they don't want to ask it.
They don't want to ask it.
They don't want to ask it because they don't want any conflict or tension. So why am I going to do it?
Tiger's got no problem.
Tiger's like, I can't wait. I've been waiting all week for this, right?
I'm going to get my notebook.
I've been waiting all week for this, right? And so we want the turtles to ask that. And then we end on, I'm going to come back to that, but we end on then celebrations. So, hey, you want to make sure you brag on each other from the week. This is what I really appreciated about you this week. This is what meant the world to me this week about you. So you always end on celebrations. But back to the frustration thing. If we start learning, and we teach them a process on even how to walk through a frustration, it's called a repair framework. And a part of it is, what do I feel? Those kind of things. Most importantly is to validate their feelings, but we'll get to that second. But what you're doing is once these things start going well and they're not as bad as the turtle thought it was going to be, the amygdala starts getting retrained. So now the turtle doesn't dread conflict and tension.
Wow.
Because we see it's better to do it in this proactive way instead of when you're already flooded. So then you come at it calmer, and it's easy to get triggered and get flooded during that thing. But that's where you practice it. Practice it on the small things. Hey, have I done anything to frustrate this week? Versus waiting till some big thing happens and then trying to practice the skill. So, and then literally what happens over time, the amygdala gets retrained that we are safe. I am safe to going in and talking about a hard thing with my spouse. So
I like how you use frustrate and not hurt.
Yes.
Yeah.
It hurts a much more.
Yeah. If I did anything to frustrate you this week.
That's much easier.
I also think about what would it look like if your inclination is to avoid confrontation, if your inclination is to do yard work, play 18 holes of golf starting at 5:00 and be scarce. Like, how hard is it if you really want to pastor your wife, or if we really want to pastor our wives, how hard is it to say, hey, have I done anything to hurt or offend you this week? Hey, I want to celebrate and recognize something you did for me this week that really meant a lot. Thank you for reorganizing my drawers. Like, I just think about that because the default behavior is to do what you've always done. The default behavior is to remove. And, we always hear about, there's always this notion of people will separate and they'll become, you mentioned it, they'll become emotionally detached. And what does spiritual leadership or emotional intelligence require? It requires that someone is going to have to take the first step to repair and renew and replenish. And just what you said, that those two simple questions are little action steps.
Yeah.
That if you're not inclined to do it, it's like, well, why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah.
Well, if you don't take the first step, who will? And
spiritual leadership.
Yeah, and so Scott, the husbands. So I work a lot individually with the husbands, right? We work together with the couple. She works with the wives, and I'm always challenged. They're always like, fairness is not the objective of marriage. And so I always tell the husbands, they're like, why do I always have to go first? And I'm like, Ephesians 5:26, where it says we're supposed to love our wives the way Christ loved the church and died for the church. He didn't mean, obviously we'll take a bullet for a wife. He's talking about die to being right, dying to fairness, dying to fairness.
Yes.
So we're saying you got to die to the fairness. You go first. If you have to go first every time, and you want, but if you just go first, and so for the turtles, and we try to give them tools and skills on how to go first, right? And so, you can be we always, for both sides, but it really helps with turtles going to tigers is to use a softened startup. So you go to them and say, if you're going to share a frustration with them, you first let them know what you appreciate about them. Let them know, and so Danielle, this has been life-changing for us, because when Danielle would bring a frustration to me early in our marriage, all I would hear was, I'm a horrible husband. I would react like she was calling me a horrible husband. Now she'll come and she'll say, hey, honey, I think you're an incredible husband. And I start laughing because I know here comes a complaint. But it's magical. That humor, that laughter keeps me in my prefrontal cortex, in my logical part of my brain. And now I'm ready for the complaint.
But it also, it softens your heart because it's true.
Yeah,
and she appreciates you.
Yeah. And so,
what's it called? Soften
startup. Oh, and it's a Gottman tool, skill. And it's called a soften startup. And you just, compliment them beforehand. And so we use this funny example from early in our marriage where Danielle came in and said, hey, I thought you were going to take the trash out before the trash man came. And I was like, I was working on my computer. I'm like, can you see I was busy? You could have done it. Now, thing was, it comes before she wakes up. And I told her I was going to take it out. So instead of saying, I'm sorry, I told you I was going to, I'm blaming her, attacking her. And so we went to our counselor. That was when we were going weekly back to our counselor early in our marriage. And so Danielle, she tells, she couldn't wait to tell him. So,
she was ready.
And tell the story. And our counselor goes, look, when you came in and said, hey, honey, I thought you were going to take the garbage out, trash out, where trash man came, all Russ heard was he's a horrible husband. You weren't calling him a husband, but that's what he heard. So he goes, now she comes in, and now differently, she would come in and she would see me working on the computer, and she would say, hey, honey, I see you're working hard on the computer. I mean so much to me how much you work for our family and provide for our family. And I know you didn't mean to, but you forgot the garbage. And, I've got this sensitive nose that's going to sit in the garage all week. And I know you didn't mean to, but dang, it's frustrating. I'd be, honey, I'm so sorry. I know next time I'll set an alarm. See, it's just completely two different reactions because of that soften startup.
Well, I think about this. I think about whether you're a turtle or you're a tiger. If you're a leader in your home, we just talked about that. It's the first place to lead. But I also think about the turtle and tiger scenario at work. Like how hard is it if you're the leader at work, at corporate, whether you're a turtle or a tiger, how hard is it for you to start a conversation with a coworker, a subordinate, or a boss with maybe it's not as fluffy as, is there any way I've offended you or hurt your feelings this week? But there's other ways to kind of check in and say, hey, how are things going? Hey, I know it's been really hard lately. How are you thinking about things? Or, it's the most famous, easy thing in the feedback exercise at work is when you give somebody the sandwich. Yeah. Hey, I think you're really good.
Yeah.
This is one area I think you really could do some work. Super willing to help you. Yeah. Really hope and look forward to making progress with you. And I'm in your corner.
Crap sandwich.
And I'm like, but how is it we lose that sensitivity when it comes to our marriages?
Yeah. So Scott, that is exactly what we want to do when we want to share a frustration, is to start out with that soften startup and even end with something positive as well. That's one dynamic. Now, the other dynamic is when you want to ask someone their perspective. So, hey, honey, can you give me your perspective on such and such? Soon as they say something we don't like or agree with, or when you say, can you share, have I done anything to frustrate you this week? And they share it, most likely we're going to say, I don't agree with that, or you're going to go into defense mode, right? And it's so crucial when they say something we don't like or agree with to say, hey, can you tell me more about how that made you feel? Or can you tell me more how you got to that perspective? I really want to know. And once again, the tone's important.
Yeah.
The tone can't come across, or the facial expression like annoyed or you shouldn't feel that way. Can you tell me what this is so we always say, this is a good point for me to tell you what we believe are the most important two tools in marriage. Number one is to pray out loud together. The stats are off the charts, what that does for marriage, right? It's hard to believe, but the stats are off the chart.
Amen.
Number two, so hard to master, but if couples could master this, it will absolutely transform their marriage. And it's to care more about my spouse's feelings. So men, care more about your wife's feelings than your own perspective or being right. It is so hard. When they say something we don't like or agree with, we immediately want to prove them that they shouldn't feel that way, or that we're right and they're wrong. Instead, can you tell me more? My wife's favorite 3 words from me, can tell me more. So if I can say, can you tell me more why you feel that way, instead of trying to convince her she shouldn't feel that way. It's amazing. And so we don't have to, and then the next, and this is right there with it, I'm giving you like the top 3 things, is learning how to validate our spouse's feelings.
Yeah.
So when they say something and we say, can you tell us more about how it makes you feel, or more about your feelings? And then they give us those feelings, is to validate them. Now, here's the key. This was really hard for me early in our marriage, is validating their feelings. Wait a minute, that means I agree with her. And I don't agree with her. And what my counselor finally convinced me, he goes, Russ, you don't have to agree that you ignored Danielle to understand she felt ignored, and it was really painful.
Yes.
Right?
That's right.
So I just need to validate and say, well, I can say to myself, okay, wait a minute. If that's your perspective, then I can understand why it hurts so much.
Yeah.
I can understand why you're so frustrated. If that's I don't agree with your perspective, but if I was in your shoes and that was my perspective,
I felt that.
so then validate it. But those magical words, wow, I can understand how that makes you feel.
So good.
Wow, that makes sense to me. Even though I don't agree that I did anything wrong. But I'm validating.
I wonder, these are all so valuable. Thank you. I just wonder if you grew up in a home where that was normal behavior, if it would just be like, well, of course, everybody does that.
If we could do this for our children growing up, I know the next episode we're going to talk about parenting, and these skills and tools, they're the same thing with parenting.
Yeah.
And but those things, pray out loud together. When they say something we don't like, agree with, ask us to tell us more, and then validate their feelings, whether we agree with them or not.
I'm going to do better. Can I go back to something?
Yeah.
I heard somebody this week, Albert Brooks, say, if you want the simplest, easiest way to tell your wife you love her, make eye contact when you're talking to her.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I got this great recliner upstairs, and I'm like this with that recliner, and she's over here.
Yeah.
And this is
we're in the same boat. We have the same dynamic.
Interact. And I heard that, and I turn my recliner and I just look her in the eye. And it's like such a simple thing that we do. Like when I'm talking to you guys, but somehow we've
It
lost
means you
that.
matter. It tells them you matter.
You're the most important thing going on here.
You're a priority in my life. You matter. You are worth caring for. You are worth loving.
It's you hear this over and over again. What presence? Like, what does presence mean? It means you're not watching the Braves while you're listening to your wife.
I just think we talked about the EQ being the differentiator between CTO and CEO, being the most important thing on how somebody can really get up to the senior levels of leadership of an organization. And I don't know a man here or a man out there who does so many things so well when they execute at work for the purpose of providing for their family, for the purpose of leading, for the purpose of providing. And it's always just amazing to me in hearing this conversation about all of those rules and all of those things that apply at work apply more at home.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's the number one place they should matter and be getting practiced.
Yeah.
And yet we'll take so many courses about corporate leadership.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then, but we walk through that threshold at home and no, that's for the office. That I don't do courses on.
So true.
Yeah.
That's why we named our ministry Intentional Marriages, because marriage requires so much intention. We have to be intentional. We're so intentional in every our health, our finances, our career, our job. But man, our marriage we just take for granted subconsciously.
One of the in the early days, in the dark days of we've talked about this before, in the dark days of marriage, it was my wife's love for Jesus that made her wait on me. And I'm sure her list of grievances could go at least around 285. It was that big. All the things I did wrong.
That's our perimeter highway for those.
Yeah,
who don't live in
perimeter.
Atlanta.
Sorry. And but one of the neatest stories about as it relates to this is that she got to the point where she realized that I'm not going to change him.
Right.
Then she got to the point where she said, I'm not going to fight to fix him. And then she got to the point where she just said, her prayer was 2 prayers. The first prayer was, God, change my heart towards him, which is just drips of intentionality. And it really is, okay, I'm going to do the honorable thing. You change him. And then her second prayer was, and God, change my heart towards him. And secondly, do your work in him. Do your work in him. You said earlier, 70% of the issue, 70% of these issues can't be fixed. So it calls on obviously a different lens, but it also really calls on a much, much higher power.
Absolutely.
The idea that I'm not going to fix him. I'm going to love him and serve him and change my heart towards him, but I'm going to let you fix him because Jesus, you're the fixer.
Right.
Fix the 70% of things that are unfixable. Redeem them. And I just feel like that was an amazing prayer. And I think about all of the carnage as we learn some of these things, you know, and the carnage that I'm sure guys are sitting at home going, oh, and they might show it to their wife and she might go, oh. This stuff is gold. We could go forever on tigers. And
I think we're going to have you back to talk more about this topic at another time. We haven't even made it through the sheet and we haven't made it to the time.
We haven't.
That's one of my favorite topics. So
it's a beautiful topic. And I think it's a beautiful way to surrender. It's a beautiful way to show the love of Christ and serve each other.
Yeah.
And we talked about it a little bit, but as we've talked about serving and surrendering and trying to put our best selves forward, love the other person the way they need to be loved. In marriage, that's kind of the first relationship. But the next episode really deals with the relationships that we're going to have for a long time. And it's those with our kids. Yeah. And you might have young kids right now, and you might have middle school kids right now. They might have left the home and they're in college artificially, but still on the payroll. They're still yours. And then they become adults. And we're going to talk now about emotional intelligence in parenting and having those relationships so they can go the distance. Next time on The Outpost.